Through the void of nothingness, I am falling all night long. It's like this incredible free fall that could only happen where gravity is not present. Every single joint, every muscle is being beautifully and pleasurably articulated. And in this darkness, I am serenaded by two voices, over and over and over, saying only two words. You know. You know. You know. You know. You know. This incredibly impactful dream came to me when I was about a year into my study of the Feldenkrais method. And it signaled for me that something significant had indeed changed in my life. The voices were that of Moshe Feldenkrais, who I'd never met and had died long before I became interested in the Feldenkrais method, and my shamanic teacher at the time, Alberto Villoldo, who wouldn't have known me from Eve. So these two men, though, knew something about how to embody and to embolden people, that we each had what we needed in order to make it in this world. And that was a pretty big shift for me, to go from thinking about getting permission from that which was outside in order to live, in order to thrive, in order to feel good, and instead finding that from the inside out. Now I'm on an epic journey, just like you. We're all on epic journeys. Mine was mostly as a child on a farm in Missouri. Our particular farm had hogs right next door. My grandparents had beef, cattle, and guineas and chickens, and my other grandparents had dairy cattle and chickens, and so we had a lot of opportunity to live close to the land, close to animals, and learn wonderful things like making your own sausage or butchering or cane sugar, pressing out cane sugar, making molasses, and oh my God, the amount of canning. I think I was like 30 before I finally managed to forget the recipe for making sauerkraut, which I never even liked. So there was many things about my childhood that are wonderful, including the fact that I had two really, really loving parents. But I was exposed to trauma very early, and this led to having both emotional and physical difficulties. And maybe there was some other things that were present with my DNA, I don't know, because my motor coordination wasn't great. And I never really could run well, and the amount of pain in my knees was really pretty disabling. So there were other things going on as well. But you know, when you're raised in a rural Germanic family back then, you definitely weren't talking about these kinds of difficulties on any regular basis. Instead, you were doing this thing that I learned really well, which is to make things look good on the outside, and they may not be great on the inside at all. But I did pretty well in school. I navigated, moved away from home very quickly, and eventually settled into a marriage and my professional life. Again, did pretty well. Had a great start in my career in terms of healthcare programming and business. And you know, I could really dress up great, put on my makeup, my nails, my high heels, and go out and do this world. But at night, at home, on the weekends, things were not as great. They were not so good. And eventually, as my mother started to die and I started traveling by them back and forth from Cincinnati to Missouri, and my marriage started to really completely dissolve, I was particularly non-functional. I found it difficult at the end of the day to even make it through a grocery store, much less cook for myself. I might lean on the grocery cart, go back out to the car, take a rest, come back in and get a few more groceries. The fatigue was just incredible. The amount of discomfort and pain was also really sharp. And I had brought with me into my adult life all the filters of my trauma, so that I was actually really regularly re-traumatizing myself just through daily living. Now, I mean, and that may not be really a great way to say it, re-traumatizing myself, but my filters were allowing pretty much only really things that reinforced the worldview that I had been growing up with as a child when I was being hurt, right? And this is a really common thing that comes out of early trauma. So I tried some things. I was like, okay, I game on. This is not, I can't go on like this. There's a certain point at which your body or your emotional status, whichever you want to call it, just tells you the jig is up. And so I began psychotherapy. I did massage therapy. I did cranial sacral therapy, various forms of earth-based medicine, energy-based medicine, a lot of creative process, a lot of writing, a lot of art type things. And all of these things did help a lot on what we might call the emotional level. But I was still having regular post-traumatic stress nightmares, and I still had a lot of physical pain. And then I tried the Feldenkrais method. Okay, and I did not even like it. I did not like these classes, but I started having changes that were so rapid in how I felt at home in my body and my skin. I would sometimes think I didn't even know you could feel this good. And even though I still continued to have other problems or issues, right? Life keeps happening. It's not like you just suddenly never have pain again or difficulties again. That's not the way it works. I felt that I was getting a tool set for how to navigate the world. When I was in my training, probably about 2 years in is when I started to really feel like the tide had shifted. That I was no longer having these regularly traumatizing nightmares, and I was instead having more of these beautiful kinds of dreams like I just shared with you. And I remember driving down Winton Road on a sunny afternoon in Cincinnati with my rooftop open, and I smiled at a traffic light, and I heard myself say out loud, "I am happy." And I had never said those words before in my life, and it was shocking. And for me, it was clear that it was related to the Feldenkrais method. Now, in truth, it was everything. It doesn't just one thing. And I definitely don't want to make it sound like it was just one thing. But it was the Feldenkrais work that seemed to somehow allow everything else to sort of coalesce for me, so that I could start to be able to start to do things that I had never been able to do really as a child. I never went on long walks or hikes. Especially as an adult, I was not able to do that. I certainly didn't think about bicycling or getting out and doing other kinds of sports. And now I had dreams about doing those things, even if I wasn't actually doing them. That's an incredible change. That's an incredible shift for someone who had lived my life prior to that. Now, many years later, I am working with people that want to, golf better, run better, dance better, love better, or coming out of difficult neurological issues, navigating very difficult times or injuries. I love this work. I love this work. And while, you may not all be able to come and see me in Cincinnati or someone where you live, or maybe you are seeing me in Cincinnati, or maybe you are seeing someone where you live, you might find it beneficial to also have some online resources that will help you navigate and allow you to keep engaging with yourself on a regular basis. Because life does keep happening. And this process of learning to navigate life, to be ready for the unexpected and sometimes the undesirable. It is important. If you have the luxury of doing it, it is important. And I know if you're trying to feed yourself, you're probably not watching this, right? If you're just struggling like a lot of the world, the majority of the world is struggling, well, you're not watching this because you're not got that privilege to engage with yourself in that way. But some of us have got that privilege, and I hope that I'm using it well, and I invite you to consider if you can use it well or better or more or whatever. Thank you so much for listening to a little bit of my story.